Hello people, I'm Ginny Metheral. I'm your local 4th generation witch, should you ever require one. Today's video is part of a new series. I get quite a lot of questions from people asking about the basic tools that you need to start practicing witchcraft. Well, my answer to this is always, well, you don't really need anything, because witchcraft is the movement of energy. However, there are helpful tools. So for today's video, we're going to start with the magic of mirrors. Witchcraft was always a cottage industry, and people would be using the things that they had in their homes. I'm pretty sure that every single one of you has access to a mirror of some kind. Now, mirrors are a really traditional piece of witchcraft, and any one of you who's been watching my channel for the last year or so will see me using mirrors in a lot of spells. I find them extremely useful, and there are very many different aspects to a mirror, and you can use them in many different ways, which I'll go into a little later. But what I want to do first of all is just to look at the traditions and a bit of the history behind witchcraft uses of mirrors. In China, they have excavated a grave 8,000 years old, and part of the grave goods, the objects that were buried with the body, they found a black polished obsidian mirror. These were considered high status objects because they were difficult to produce. They took a long time, all that smoothing of the volcanic rock obsidian, to turn it into a mirror. Early mirrors tended to be this polished obsidian, giving a wonderfully clear, if slightly dark, reflective quality to them. Occultists nowadays like to use them when scrying or divination or, doing maybe some dark magic, because they're very useful for seeing entities and demons. Although I can't recommend that because no good will come of it. Even here in the UK, we loved a mirror, and the Picts of Scotland engraved them over their sacred sites and their sacred stones. There are so many traditions associated with mirrors, and one of the main ones is that mirrors reflect the soul. Now, Dracula, as we all know, is a great vampire with no soul, and therefore he has no reflection in a mirror because it only, apparently, reflects the soul, not the physical being. They do reflect the soul, yes, and you can see it very clearly in a picture of a person in a mirror. You can see the soul in their eyes, and it's much more a clear picture. People can mask their souls when you look at them directly. So a mirror gives you a true representation. This belief that a mirror can show you your soul is reflected in a very old country spell that used to be done by newly married couples. And this is a spell I can thoroughly recommend because I agree with all the ways that the energy in it work. So in the olden days, a married couple would come away from the altar, or wherever they had been married, having just said their vows. They would then, both of them, stare into a mirror together, side by side, and look at each other's reflection. And this would make sure that their souls were bound together. Now, this is something that you can do with your partner. You need to make a commitment to your partner, and then both of you turn towards the mirror and stare at each other's eyes in that mirror, thinking about that commitment that you have made to each other. Great spell, thoroughly recommend, does work, but be warned, its effects are lasting. The other famous tradition that we all associate with mirrors is, of course, if you break a mirror, that's 7 years bad luck. Some people said that this was because mirrors were expensive items and it took you 7 years to save up for a new one. So if you broke one, yeah, that's where the bad luck comes from. However, there is an old-fashioned belief that the soul regenerates every 7 years. So when you break a mirror, you take all the bad luck that is associated with the breaking of the mirror into your soul, and therefore it takes your soul 7 years to process that bad luck away. there was a cure for this bad luck. You could take every single tiny, and you made sure you collected up all the sweepings, every single shard of mirror that you found and broke. You take them outside and you bury them. This would avert any negativity coming your way. One of the other traditions for a mirror is that it can steal your soul. So if you go to sleep at night and in your bedroom there is a mirror reflecting you as you sleep, this can suck the soul and the being and the goodness from your body as you kip. It's probably the bouncing back of your own energy between your body and the mirror as it's reflected in and out, just tires you out. I don't really know, but there is something in it. So do make sure that when you sleep, you are not being reflected in the sight of a mirror. And finally, one of the oldest traditions in the UK was that if somebody has died in your household, you must cover the mirrors over with a cloth for 3 days so that the soul doesn't become trapped and tries to escape to the afterlife through the mirror, which would be a bad thing, rather than going through the doorway to the land of spirit. So this one there is something in this tradition. So yes, I do think there are quite a few haunted mirrors out there, and they do contain bad spirits. So mirrors are quite controversial in a way. They can protect and they can harm. So many supernatural beings are given mirrors as talismans. Bridget, the great Anglo-Saxon goddess, was given the shining mirror, which was a portal through to the other world, and mirrors often were considered doorways. Merlin, that wonderful great wizard of old, had his magic mirror, which King Arthur could see whatever was going on in his kingdom. Mermaids are often depicted with a mirror because they can put their energy into the mirror, and with this mirror they can capture yonder sailors. That is my main overview of mirror folklore, but what, as a witch, would you use a mirror for? Well, there's several main uses, so let's have a quick look at each of them. Number one must be, of course, for divination and scrying. Now, scrying is simply looking at the future or looking at distant objects. So this is something that mirrors are possibly best known for. Remember the fairy tale of Snow White? Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? Of course, the evil queen is using her magic mirror to let her look at other events going on in the kingdom, and that is pure scrying. And scrying is a very easy technique to master. You simply need to take your mirror and in a darkened room and by the light of a candle, gaze into the mirror and try and look through the mirror to what you might see beyond your reflection. And you should feel those images start to come through. It might take you a bit of time. It's always good to do a bit of third eye opening techniques beforehand, but it's easy to practice and you can do it quietly, nobody noticing. For of course, who is going to complain if they come in and see you gazing at yourself in the mirror? It doesn't even need to be handheld, you can use the mirror in the bathroom. Mirrors are also greatly used in protective magic. So if you hang a mirror opposite the front doorway of your house, this will reflect out any negativity and bad vibes from entering inwards. Likewise, there is an issue with it reflecting out positive energy and positive vibes from entering. However, you can bring those in other ways, but it definitely keeps the bad vibes at bay. They are also really good for reflecting back curses and hexes. And this is something that is also incredibly easy to do. If you think that you have been cursed or hexed by someone, you need to know whether that person who cursed you or hexed you is north, south, east or west of you at that moment. So you need to find out, say that they're at home and their home is northeast of you. You need to stand facing with your mirror northeast. Then picture the person, picture the curse inside your head, speak the words aloud. Any curses that you have sent my way, I now reflect back to you. And I do promise you that will work. Curses are always formed by a person's energy, and reflecting it back to them brings their own negativity. Now there is an added bonus with this. Mirrors have an amplitude effect on things that they reflect. For example, if you've ever seen someone to use a mirror to direct the force of sunlight through the mirror onto the ground, onto some dry tinder and create a fire, that's because the mirror is amplifying the sun's rays and condensing and increasing the energy of it. So that is what you're doing if you reflect back a curse using a mirror. And it is not a difficult thing to do. Make sure you know exactly where they are though, because you don't want to reflect the curse by mistake onto somebody else. So try to not think of anybody else whilst you're doing this protective, reflective magic. It is for this reason that I particularly use this mirror to reflect magic into my spells. I place it and use it as a circle base to put my spells upon when I'm creating them. And this will help amplify the energy of the spell. That's something I do quite a lot. You can use little small mirrors to help you during your day-to-day life. If you are having a problem, say, with confidence in a business meeting, before you go into the business meeting, take a little handheld mirror, look into it, and imagine the person you are seeing there inside that mirror, most confident, most brilliant, most effusive, most effervescent person, or whatever person it is that you want to be. That will reflect back into your soul and give you strength and courage. Mirrors work great in sex magic, and in fact the ancient Israelites understood this very well. Ancient Israelites, I know they're the forerunners of the Jewish faith, but they really understood magic. They really did, and they used it a lot. Israelite women, although they were quite conservative, so they only would do this with their husbands, they would use mirrors in sex magic for fertility. So as they were making love with their husbands, they would reflect that energy in a mirror and use that to amplify the energy and create a fertility spell that would hopefully result in a child. It's a very lovely way of doing a fertility spell, actually, using a mirror in sex magic. So on that note, tell me, which spell did you like the best, and are you going to do any of them? I'm very keen to hear your thoughts on this. In the meantime, don't forget my coven meeting is literally coming up in about 5 days. Still enough time to join. Do go to www.patreon.com/Ginny Metheral for information. And otherwise, I will see you in a few days.